everybody. Yeah, as Pete says, I'm incredibly lucky to have worked in some wonderful company cultures, but also, thankfully, there are company cultures out there that aren't so good, and it keeps me in business. So, as Pete rightly says, I'm going to give a little bit of insight today. I know I've got between 15 and 18 minutes-ish. Promise I won't go on any longer, Pete. To give you a little bit of insight into what do we mean by company culture and what falls into that. And I'm going to give you a couple of practical tips as well at the end. So feel free to ask some questions if it's a case that afterwards, definitely. But I'm hoping that you're going to come away with understanding a little bit more about the foundations of a company culture and what I would call an employee experience and building a positive employee experience. So the first thing, and I don't know whether or not this might fail, but I wanted to just throw it out to the group and ask the question, and I can see Mark is already poised, ready to go to answer my question. Does anybody want to give me a quick definition of what they believe company culture to be? If you were to define it in your words, because there are a lot of definitions out there that are pretty vanilla or pretty dry, but if someone can, what they think company culture is or what it means, if there's a definition that how would you define it?
I'm going to nominate someone if someone doesn't nominate themselves.
Mark's gone quiet. Mark, that's unlike you.
There's a couple of comments in the chat. So the values in how people
what have we
show
got?
up.
Love it. Okay, cool.
And values to operate by.
Brilliant. Okay, perfect. Good. Okay, because this is aligned to that of what I'm going to be talking about. So that's always handy, isn't it? Now I've got this. I'm going to bring up my screen. Hang on. Let me share it. Bear with. Share. Let's go. Can you all see my screen? Can I just have a quick thumbs up? Yes, good. So what I'm going to do is I've got this lovely quote that I saw, and I use this quite a lot. It's company culture is how employees' hearts and stomachs feel about Monday morning on the Sunday night. So I have been in roles, I have been in companies where on a Sunday night I think, oh my God, I've got the dreads. I really don't want to go to work tomorrow morning because I've got X, Y, Z happening. And you think, geez, how much time do you spend at work? Why do we get to the point where we actually put ourselves through that? And it's just unacceptable. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how can we convert that in making sure that Monday morning, everybody that comes to work is absolutely on it, motivated, happy, firing all cylinders, thriving, super motivated. I just wanted to give you some stats. So 75% of the UK employees have experienced a toxic workplace company culture, which is madness. And 26% of UK employees are actively disengaged at work. Yet companies that prioritise a healthy company culture see a substantial 33% increase in revenue. So I'm not quite sure, don't get it. So it makes sense. Having a healthy company culture is going to have an impact on your bottom line. And what I do see when working with leaders, founders, sometimes they can think, oh, is that a bit fluffy? And sometimes it's a bit difficult to try and measure how a positive company culture and what impact that's having on your bottom line, which we'll talk about in a second. But it can be difficult for company culture consultants, HR, in the short term to measure. But the fact that this stat here it is important, which we'll come to later, in many aspects of your company that you're looking to scale as to why you would have a positive company culture and positive employee experience. So I'm going to show you this. This is a little bit of what goes on in my head, actually. And it was inspired by the Reward Gateway. And essentially the theory behind this is that in order to have a strong company culture and engaged workforce, you have to have the foundations, the building blocks of what makes your company culture sticky. And this might look a bit odd. I put a tree here because it's the roots. If you've got your tree's going to flourish. It's going to grow. It's going to be strong as you continue to grow. When there's change with wind, weather conditions, it's going to stay sturdy when you've got a really strong. And this diagram here on the right is a bridge. And essentially what it's saying is that if you've got a really strong bridge with no cracks within that bridge, you can host more and more people on top of that bridge. And it's not going to fall. It's not going to break. So I'm going to briefly go through what aspects of these building blocks build a healthy company culture. At the bottom, it might look a bit weird. You've got these two pillars, but you've essentially got the basics of what any company should have, which are pay, benefits, wellness, and workspace. And what I mean by workspace is the virtual workspace, but the physical workspace as well. So I have all the tools virtually for me to be able to do my job, but also to be able to connect with people through that of online tools, etc. And then on top of that, and these were some of the things we talked about in our group, actually, we were talking about communication and how it was really key for us to have what I call psychological safety. I'm able to bring an idea and know that if I bring that idea within my team, within my department, within the business, there's going to be no repercussions if they don't believe it's a very good idea, or I feel that I've got the confidence to challenge something that actually I think could be done in a better way. That is around having an open, honest and transparent level of communication within that business. And then you've got, and I've bolded, this piece is in bold, because having your purpose, your mission and your values and behaviors is fundamental, as Pete was saying. If you have that Northern Star, and I'm clear on what that Northern Star is and where I'm heading with said business, I'm going to collaborate better, I'm going to work better together, we're going to be more productive because I know where we're heading. But actually, if I've also got my values and behaviors and that we're all working together with the same values and behaviors, it's going to mean that we are working better together. And actually, I'm going to relate better to that business because we have that compass which aligns. But also from a business perspective, if we've got really clear values and behaviors, back to Pete's point about recruiting people into your business, we can recruit those who are value aligned to that of what we're trying to do as a business. But it also ensures the business is making decisions based on values. So I see a lot of companies who will come up with an employee of the month, or there will be the odd shout out, let's say quarterly, if they're lucky in some cases. And it will be based on subjective. It will be based on, this is what I think, because I've been on the front line, I've been in the trenches and I've seen it. But actually that can become, as you get bigger, it becomes quite unfair, and your unconscious bias can then kick in. So by aligning that to your values and behaviors, once you have those, ensures that you're fair, you're consistent, etc. So they're so important, fundamental to the foundation of your company culture and engaging your staff. And then on top of that, you've got your management and leadership, pretty straightforward. Do we have some really great managers in here or not? How are they doing? And are we managing to get the best out of our people? Are we leading in the best possible way? And are we clear on our mission and our purpose? And am I a credible leader? Have I got people following me? And then you've got job design, learning, and job design is in around, are we being clear on what you're actually bringing your people in to do? Now, as a business, when you're scaling in the first instance, sometimes it's a bit difficult to be really clear on what it is. It might be a case they're doing a lot, maybe they're spinning lots of plates. But being really clear and setting very clear expectations right from the start means you've got that clear contract of, this is what you're going to deliver for me, and let's set some really good, clear goals in and around that, so that you stay with this business a long time, you feel like you're thriving and that you're having an impact. Learning is fundamental, especially with Gen Zs. Am I learning within this business? Am I growing? Am I being challenged? If I am, and I feel like I'm progressing within this business, I'm going to stay, and I'm also going to really enjoy it. And then on top of that, you've got recognition. So recognition, I'm not talking about pay, I'm not talking about salary, but what I'm talking about is, and we talked about this in our group actually and I was talking to Ed, and it was around making sure that your recognition continues as you scale, because it gets lost. It's much easier for me to roll my chair over to, or where I'm on a Teams meeting, to say thank you for that, that was really great. As you get bigger, that gets lost. And I see that a lot with companies that I work for. So you have to put proper methodologies in place to enable people to give thanks and remind people to give thanks, because it goes a long way. And believe it or not, there's a lot of companies that don't do it. I'm always gobsmacked when I go in and you think, what? You don't have a recognition strategy? I think it's about time we implement one. So I've shown you this because I wanted to give you the blueprint of what I've got going on in my head, to show you the motivational factors that I would expect any business to have and to be looking at as fundamental if you're wanting to grow an engaged workforce and a healthy company culture. But then what I then wanted to show you was the employee experience. Yes, it's all about looking at the motivational factors, but also in order to ensure you've got a strong company culture, is looking at the employee experience. And what I mean by the employee experience is, if you look at this diagram here, when you're first hired, you can see in the grey there, attraction, this is when you're first hired, looking at how candidates, now it might sound a bit odd, but looking at how and what candidate experiences are, because they're also going to become your advocates for your business if you're going to hire moving forward, and you start to build a pool of talent that way. And really looking at how are we being perceived, how are we treating candidates, and how are we communicating our employer value proposition. And our employer value proposition is, what are we giving to our employees in return for the hard work that they give? So this is the employee life cycle. And the first section here, you've got attraction. The second section, you've then got a recruitment. So how effective is our hiring process? How are we going out? How are we ensuring that we are assessing the skills with rigor and ensuring not only for that candidate that we're placing correctly, but also for the business too, so we don't have a revolving door, and making sure that you're hiring at speed, etc., and all that lovely stuff. But also the fact that you're providing a positive recruitment process for candidates is really important as well. And then you've got onboarding. So how are we bringing people into the business? I see this missed quite a bit. You spend all this wonderful time looking at how we're perceived externally, how we're bringing people into the business, and how we're involving other employees in our recruitment process to ensure we're placing at the right time and the right people at the right time. But then they forget the onboarding and it flops. And if it flops, if you think about it, if I'm working hybrid and I'm not in the office every day or as much as perhaps we were way back when, it can be it's a slower process to become embedded within that company culture. Your onboarding is paramount to that. And then you've got development. So let's look at what strategies have we got in place to ensure that we're developing our people and they're growing? What does our performance management process look like? How are we setting goals? And then that's when you move into so you've got the hire, you've got I'm inspiring, and then we're then having employees who really start to admire this business. They really want to stay here because they feel proud to work for this organization. And I'm also going to talk to other people because I blooming love it here. Come and join me because it's fantastic working here. And then you've got those engagement factors, which falls back to the bridge. That within that bit there, how are we engaging our people? How are we ensuring that they are motivated and that they're happy? And then another piece here is the separation. This bit gets lost so many times. The amount of juicy stuff that could be used to go back into this employee life cycle when it comes to an exit interview is so important. And actually listening to why people are walking out your door, even if it's a positive, I'm leaving because, even that question around what other things can we be doing to improve our employee experience, that's gold dust. And to be weaved back into that loop of the employee life cycle is really important. And I see it get missed. But you'll see lovely values and behaviours are smack bang in the middle of this. They have to be the fundamental core foundation of everything that you're doing when it comes to decisions around your employee life cycle and the experience and the strategies you're putting in to engage. Are you all still with me?
We are.
Good. All right. So why is it important to get it right? You all know this. I know you do, but I just wanted to highlight some really core pieces as to why, Gem, why are we putting all this time into ensuring we've got a great employee experience? I know you know why, but why is it important to have a healthy company culture? Improved retention. So if I feel valued, I'm obviously less likely to leave. But what it's going to do is it's going to save me time as a founder. I'm not having to go re-recruit. My manager's not having to go re-recruit when they could be focusing on growing the business. And therefore, you minimize things like recruitment fees, times for onboarding, and training new people, etc. So improved customer service, engaged employees are going to go the extra mile. They're going to provide that wow factor to that of your customers because they blooming love working for your company. And therefore, you're going to get repeat business. Drives high performance, it's going to improve your quality. And it then actually flips into this next one. If I feel engaged, I know where I'm heading, I know what we're doing as a business, I feel like I'm being looked after and I'm working in this most wonderful company culture, I'm going to fire on all cylinders when it comes to innovation, problem solving, etc., and creativity, which is going to move this boat even blooming faster to where we need to go to. So therefore, it's going to impact your bottom line. So you see my point is sometimes it's a bit difficult to try and measure with hardcore data that piece around the impact it's having on your bottom line. So some practical tips. What I've done is I've gone through I haven't gone through all of them because we'd be here for a little bit longer than 15 to 18 minutes. But what I've done is I've picked just a couple of first sections to talk about some of the things that you could be thinking about and that you could implement as part of that employee experience. On the attraction piece, so we talked about the employer value proposition, and this is the piece which is going to enable any business to stand out and ensure that they attract the top talent, because it is tough out there. There is a huge amount of candidates, and in order to ensure that you stand out, I think that those that do the best are those that are a little bit more creative in the benefits that they offer. And some of the benefits that I see companies offer would be things like 4-day week, making sure that they've got a flexible working policy in place. But it goes much deeper than just having fresh fruit in the office or having a pool table, etc. I see a lot of career sites where I go apply for a role and I have a look at, I am the dummy, I go in and pretend I'm a candidate. I want to go through what the candidate journey is and what I would get if I were to join this business, what the benefits are. And I see it's a lot of lip service, and it's not until you then scratch the surface and you then start opening it a little bit more, you think, oh, okay, fine, okay, does that really happen? Yeah, it's about really looking at ways that you can stand out as an employer of choice and offer benefits that are going above and beyond that of salary. And it's about being creative, because what I see a lot of are companies counter offering. So if it's a case that they've got somebody top within their business that's looking to leave, that business will counter with a higher salary. And don't get me started what that then starts to do with your salary bands internally with a company, because it does all sorts of things in terms of your salary bands when they start to counter offer. So just making sure that you offer unique benefits, but also linking back to values and behaviors. How can you look at benefits that link back through to your core fundamental values as a business? And the other piece in terms of attraction to really look at is your online presence. Now, I don't know, has anybody heard of Glassdoor? Yes. Yep. Okay, some nods. Brilliant. Okay, cool. So Glassdoor, for those who don't know, is the TripAdvisor for holidays. It enables anybody who's been interviewed, an employee, to give a piece of feedback as to how their experience has been. And my advice here would be, because this Glassdoor profile gets set up without an employer knowing, my advice for any employers that I know of, I say take hold of it, because it goes back to your open, honest and transparent communication. Grab it and start responding to some of that stuff that's coming through, because there's nothing worse than just leaving it. If you've seen a negative comment and you decide, I'm not going to go join that employer, but they have responded and they are putting provisions in place to improve, that for me is going to think, oh, okay, maybe I will have a discussion with them, because they are listening to their employees and they're open to feedback and they are changing. And the other thing I actually wanted to add to this, I think it might be coming to you later, but I was at an event yesterday and they were talking about people handing in their notice via TikTok. And it links through to the Glassdoor, and you have to be authentic back to your value proposition. You have to be authentic in terms of what you're doing from a company culture perspective and what you're offering your employees. Because what Gen Zs are doing is being much more vocal with their feedback, to the point where they were prominent on Glassdoor. Now I'm handing my notice in verbally via TikTok and actually I'm stripping a business down as to why I've handed my notice in. That's scary. But in the same breath, I think actually that's going to really make sure that businesses step up and make sure that they are thinking about all this stuff and making sure they create great places to work. Why wouldn't you? But I thought I'd put that little nugget in there that we were talking about yesterday at an event that I was at. So in terms of attraction, it's about going back to that authenticity piece. Use your people as your advocates. They'll tell their stories and do mini case studies on them. Get them to post testimonials and use that to present yourself as an employer of choice. This is us. These are our values. And by the way, this is what our people think as well. And also, I think just consistency. If you've got a website with your careers site on, what I sometimes see, or I see quite a bit, is you have LinkedIn profiles of those people who are attached to that business. Random people are attached to that LinkedIn profile for that company. And then you've got random descriptions in terms of what that business does. And you just think to yourself, how focused are you on being a team, a solid team, So just look at things like your LinkedIn profiles, the way you're coming across on social media, and the profiles that are attached to your business as well. And also just make sure the candidate experience is a positive one, because that person is just going to tarnish your brand if they've had a poor experience throughout the interview process. I say it a lot, and it's just making sure that you treat people with respect and again, you follow your values and behaviors in giving them feedback, making sure they've got a timely response, all that lovely stuff. How am I doing on time?
We've got a couple of minutes.
Right, last one. So just into hiring. So as a company scales, it's difficult to sometimes ensure that you've got that where you're going at 1,000 miles an hour. I need to go find quickly. Let's just go and I need an account manager or whatever it is that I need to go find. What is missed and the downfall sometimes when it comes to the hiring process, and this is crucial for ensuring that you keep a strong, healthy company culture, because the moment you get your hiring wrong and you get that revolving doors of people coming in and then leaving straight off, everybody else in business is going, what's going on? Is there something that we should be aware of? Is there something that we've not quite worked out yet? And then trust starts to deteriorate, and that ripple effect starts to happen. So having a really structured hiring process is really key. So ensuring that you have a clear structure right from the outset. What's the first interview stage look like? What's the second interview stage look like? What does the third interview stage look like? Where are people applying for roles? Where are they going into? So it's just mapping out that beginning to end, and what does that look like? Who's involved at each stage? Do we pop a little assessment in there? Where does that assessment sit? But then even more crucially, scorecards, because that's when your unconscious bias kicks in. So just be really clear when you're in your planning stage. What's the role? What are the responsibilities? What are the key skills that are required? Create some interview questions that go with that, and then score. Because if you have somebody that then turns back to you and says, I'm not happy with the fact that you haven't taken me on because I believe I've got those skills, or and have you potentially discriminated against me because I'm whatever, female, you've got the breadcrumbs. You need those breadcrumbs. And I don't want to start scaring you, but it's just best practice to make sure that you're using scorecards and linking through to your key skills that you need for that role, because it will help you ensure you get the right people in the right place at the right time. Squad involvement, super important. Making sure that you've got people in your business involved in the hiring process, because not only does that enable the candidate to view what it's like in your business, but it also then promotes that sense of camaraderie. You value me as an employee because you want to be part of your hiring process. That's great. And I feel really motivated by that. So thank you so much. And I'm going to whiz past the next one because I'm running out of time, but I just wanted to give you a couple of things to be thinking about if you're looking to attract talent, and also in terms of your hiring, and some of the things to be thinking about, because they're so crucial to ensuring that you build a healthy, engaged company culture. And it's these foundations that are really important to get right. Thank you. Any questions? That was all the information very, very quickly.
That was amazing. We have got questions, Jem, but we're going to leave them to the end because we've got a couple of things still to get through. Ed's got one in the chat already, which